A very good morning to one and all. Myself, Professor Chetan Gupta, Assistant Professor, SIRT Bhopal, the SAGE Group, and today we are going to discuss about a subject that is a database management system. And today we are going to discuss about a topic that is a transaction and a schedule. So basically, a transaction is a unit of program execution that access and possibly update various data items. A transaction is a collection of operation that can be combined into a single unit, or we can say that a transaction is a logical unit of work that must be either entirely completed or no operation is performed. For example, if we want to perform a transaction to transfer $50 from account A to account B, so we can write the statement. First of all, we will read the user A account, then we will deduct the $50 from the account A, and then after the deduction we will update the user A account so that the $50 is deducted from the user A account. Now we read the account of user B. The $50 that is deducted from account A is credited into account B, and we will write the updated value of B. So by this statement we can transfer $50 from account A to account B. There are two main issues to deal with. First is failure of various kinds of hardware failure, system crash, and all other failures, and the concurrent execution of multiple transactions. There are two main issues that are related with the transaction. If we talk about a transaction, so transaction work on ACID property, that is atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. Atomicity property require that either all the operation of the transaction are properly reflected in the database or no operation will perform. The consistency says that execution of a transaction in isolation preserve the consistency of a database. The isolation property says that although multiple transactions may execute concurrently, each transaction must be unaware of the other concurrent execution transaction. The transaction is performed in the interleave fashion. The durability property says that after the transaction completed successfully, the changes that are made by a user it persist even if the system is failure. So this is the asset property. There are some stages of a transaction as we seen in this slide, that is active stage, partially committed, then committed, failed, or abort. The active stage is the initial stage. The transaction says in the active stage while it is in executing. Now the second stage is partially committed. After the final statement has been executed, the transaction is in the partially committed stage. Failed after the discovery of the normal execution can no longer proceed, so it will enter into the fail stage. Now the abort, after the transaction has been rolled back and the database restored to its state prior to the start of a transaction, that is considered as an abort state. And the last one is committed. Committed means when the transaction is successfully committed. That means all the changes that are made by the user is successfully saved in the database. Now if we discuss about what is concurrent execution, so basically multiple transactions that are executed concurrently in the system are known as concurrent execution. Why we do the concurrent execution? First, to increase the processor and disk utilization, and the second one is reduce the average response time of a transactions. If we talk about what are the schedules in the transaction, so when the transaction are executing concurrently in an interleave fashion, then the order of the execution of the operation from the various transaction is known as schedule. Means which transaction is executed first and which transaction is executed second. The transaction processing system usually allow multiple transactions to run concurrently in the system. However, there are two good reasons for allowing concurrency. First one, improve the throughput and resource utilization of a system. Second one is reducing the waiting time. If we talk about what are the types of schedule, There are two type of schedule, serial schedule and a non-serial schedule. If we talk about serial schedule, a serial schedule is one in which all the step of each transaction occur consecutively. Suppose that if we have a two transaction, T1 transaction and T2 transaction, the T1 transaction contain few statement and the T2 transaction also contains some statement, or we can say that some operations. So first of all, if we talk about the serial scheduler, so serial scheduler is look like this. There are T1 transaction. First of all the operation of the T1 transaction are executed like we read the value of A, deduct the value of A, 50, then we write the A, then we again read the user B account, then we transfer $50 or we credit $50 into account B, then we write the operation. When the T1 transaction is successfully completed, then we perform the T2 transaction. In the given case, this is a serial schedule in which T1 transaction is followed by T2. Now, if we talk about non-serial schedule, so non-serial schedule is look like this, that T1 transaction deduct $50 from account A, then we suspend or we can initially terminate the T1 transaction, then we shift T2, then we again read the user A account, then we deduct $100 from account A. After that, we again shift to the T1 transaction, then the $50 that is deducted from account A is credited into account B, that is in the T1 transaction. And when the T1 transaction gets finished, again we shift to the T2 transaction, and then the $100 that is deducted in the T2 is credited into user B account. So this is about non-serial schedule. Means in a non-serial schedule, the transaction are executing in an interleaved fashion. Means when T1 is partially committed, then T2, then again T1 commit do the his complete execution, after that T2. So it will execute in an interleaved fashion. So in today's lecture, we are discussing about what is transaction, then we discuss about what is concurrent execution, then we discuss about what is schedule. In next lecture, we will see the another topics that are related with the transaction. Thank you so much.